Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this new live Facebook Live to talk about something that is really relevant at the moment, which is the Ukraine crisis. As you are logging in, as you're joining us, we want to encourage you to leave a comment, to share this live with your friends, and also to let us know where you're joining us from. We really want to know that there's so many people around you that are supporting ADRA, that are supporting this crisis, and so many people that are suffering at this time. And today it's been 30 days since the beginning of the Ukraine crisis. It's been a long month. I know for many people, certainly has been for our staff. And, we never imagined that 30 days ago we will be marking this grim milestone. So many things, so many lives in Ukraine have been changed in just a few weeks. And today we want to have an opportunity to learn more about this response and how ADRA has been responding, the lives that are being touched on the ground. And as we look at the numbers over the last 4 weeks, they're really staggering. And maybe you have followed the news and you follow your social media. Just in terms of numbers, there's been 3.5 million people that have fled Ukraine. 6 million people have also been displaced inside the country. And countless people have been left in dire need. Unfortunately, many dead, including young children. Not to say anything about loss of property and livelihoods is just simply astronomical. And today we're going to be joined by members of our emergency response team who have been deployed to the front lines. And we want to understand the reality on the ground and how ADRA is responding to help every person in need that we can. Now, while we talk about this response and this crisis, it's also important to understand that this is, of course, not the only crisis. It is certainly in the news, but there are other crises that ADRA, that so many people have been affected as well. We're thinking about the crisis in Yemen. It's already been happening for several years. Many people displaced there, needing of food and water and assistance. We're thinking of the latest war in Afghanistan. You have all followed that very closely. There's a lot of needs there to this day. We're seeing many people also affected with the migrant crisis stemming from Venezuela, going to different countries like Colombia, going to South America and other places. We're seeing also Haitians that have been displaced from their homes as a result of the recent earthquake, fleeing to other parts of the world in Central America. You have maybe heard of some of the displaced, the refugees coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo in Central Africa, Syria, Ethiopia, so many other countries. It is just heartbreaking to watch those images in our screens and to read about those stories. And each of these conflicts has really brought a lot of pain and suffering. And for many people, it has fundamentally changed their lives and their future. And as we go about our work, ADRA is helping people to really weather some of these crises, some of these emergencies. And today I want to invite our first guest, Alex Balint. He's not only an ADRA person who is working on the emergency team and being on the front line. He's also a personal friend. And I'm just so glad to welcome Alex to our live today. And Alex, I know you are right now in Romania. You're near the border. You're in your car, actually. Just stopped for a few minutes to do this live to join us. So we just want to thank you for all the work that you have been doing over the last 30 days. And so welcome, Alex.
Hi, Hurley. It's
Alex,
good to be with you.
And thank you. Over the last 30 days, you were the first person really to join ADRA's response in the field. You are Romanian, you speak the language, you're very aware of the many challenges that are happening there. Tell us a little bit about what it was like to be there on the first few hours of this crisis. And from a personal perspective, tell us maybe somebody that you met that really touched your heart, and just you have interacted with so many people. So share a little bit with us and with our audience about how it's been your stay there so far.
Sure, Harley. It's good to be with you and with our audience and our supporters online. I made it here basically. It was the 28th. I traveled the 27th of February. Today is exactly 25 days ago since I got here. Immediately, I went to the border. I went to several border crossing, and I remember as I arrived to one of the border crossing with southern Ukraine with Romania, there was a train bringing lots of people from Kharkiv. There was hard under shelling at the time, and I met students, coming from all over the world, from Asia, and we welcomed them with hot tea. I met, families and mothers and children. I particularly remember at that border crossing a mother that actually was a grandmother that had to flee with the little grandchildren, and she couldn't travel anywhere else in Europe because the mother couldn't travel. She was a medical, she was a doctor, a medic. She had to stay behind, of course, because of the conflict, the war effort. The father couldn't travel, and she was sobbing. She was in tears, and she was asking us for legal support. And we walked her to the tent to offer that legal support at that border crossing. And then I went to the other one, and I met another family. It was this time a grandmother, the mother, and the daughter, and they had nowhere to go. We offered them to stay in Romania, and then they said, well, they don't speak the language. How will they settle here? They wanted to go to Germany. Eventually, our volunteers assisted this family to arrive all the way in Bulgaria. And I used contacts. I used my neighbor who is Bulgarian, actually. He says, look, you're going there, Alex. If there's anybody in need of a home, we have friends in Sofia in Bulgaria, and we will help. And so that worked out. And I know that family has already been received and found a home. So those personal stories that touch you, because you see, as you said, this is a green milestone, Harney. It's been a month since this has started, and it's human lives at stake. It's personal stories. It's children we've seen. I remember we crossed with one of the convoys. It must have been 10 days ago or so. And we've delivered. And I just want to tell our audience that ADRA, at least from the Romanian side, because we work across the board in all the 7 countries, but at least from the Romanian side, our agency was the first one to send a humanitarian convoy. And ever since, it kept going in, and 130 tons of humanitarian aid were crossed over the border to our, to the people of Ukraine and assistance. And as I crossed with that convoy and we made our way back, and we were stuck in customs for hours just to come back to Romania from the city of Chernivtsi. I saw a long line, only children. There were some adults in front, some adults in the back. They were not even mothers. They were just children. There were just some adults accompanying them. And honestly, as a father of 2 daughters, it almost broke my heart to see that with my own eyes. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting in customs.
And certainly, Alex, I can understand also being a father, how we see those images of children, just often frightened and looking at their mothers for help. And, how has that really touched you personally over the last 30 days, meeting so many people that are coming across the border? Is there a time where you said, this is just too much for me, or there's just so much to be done here that I have to really focus on the work that is happening?
It has been a lot to see it with my own eyes, being closer to the reality, and
I think we have it on mute. You're muted, Alex. We cannot hear you. Well, while we get Alex back on, it's just for many of you who are really watching the images day after day, it is sobering to really see, how many people are just affected by this crisis, and we've seen also, just from our own colleagues who have been deployed there, the images that come through, seeing people coming across the border, people seeking for help, and just for any kind of hope that really they can receive. And it's been just a challenging month, and but we want to thank all of you for really supporting ADRA, for coming through with all your support, so that the work that Alex is doing really could, and so many other people could really come through. Alex, we have you back here. You were talking a little bit about your personal experience. I think we're still not hearing you. Yeah, we're still having audio issues. We can't hear you. But yes, I can see you there definitely, but we can't hear you. Yeah, that's what sometimes the challenge is. We're in the field. Sometimes connectivity can be difficult. And so, but we've been hearing also as our staff have been on the ground. This is actually one of the questions that I wanted to pose to Alex a little bit, and talk more about how churches have really started to, from the very beginning, really a lot of churches to open up their doors. In fact, in many instances, remove pews from the churches to be able to host those families, to put beds in their sanctuaries and receive them with open arms. Alex, you're back. Can we hear you? Can we do a test sound test? No, we still can't hear you, unfortunately. Alex, I know you are going to be traveling. You're in the middle of your trip at the moment, and so if we can't get you back, we completely understand. You are facing some logistical challenges, and so we are going to be. I think we're going to move on to our next guest. And before I do that, I just want to point you to our page online, where you can get more information about ADRA's response. You'll see it on our screen shortly. You can find a map. You can find more details in terms of what ADRA is doing right now to really help people, not just in Ukraine, but also in Romania, in Poland, in Slovakia, and Hungary. So check it out, and please share it on your social media and with your friends. We're going to try, Alex, one more time to see if we can get a sound back before we move on. Alex, can you
hear me
us?
now?
And
I rejoined. Can
yes,
you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear. Perfect.
Wonderful. I'm happy to continue. I lost the connection, but just go ahead.
No problem. So you were telling us really about your own experience in the last 30 days. I wanted to ask you, moving forward, we were just mentioning that a lot of churches have been opening their doors to families that have been displaced. In some instances, even removing chairs and pews, making those spaces really feel like home. Tell us a little bit more about how the community is responding to the needs of so many families, from what you've seen, from what you've experienced.
So thousands of churches inside Ukraine have become shelters in place. Mattresses were brought in, showers were installed, food supplies, were brought in. And I remember just days after this all started and I got here on the ground, I connected with our team in Ukraine. Our very own ADRA colleagues in Ukraine, they themselves have been uprooted and displaced, and they were hiding in multiple cities. And then we started, becoming operational, so to speak, getting our efforts to see how we can assist. There were people, trapped in the neighborhood of Kiev. I'm not going to mention localities, but I remember for days they were without food and water. And as our team, started to settle in place, they mobilized resources, and those people were reached. And then buses were sent to assist people to leave, to evacuate people. These buses then would carry on from shelter to shelter, where there was an education facility, a church facility, an apartment building in the basement. They were sent supplies. So it's almost a network of supply chain that was established almost overnight. Thousands of people have been helped, and we're evacuating even as we speak. Thousands of people, we're helping them, and we're sending supplies into those places. But just today, as I came from the border, we stopped at one of the shelters in Suceava. It's a church. It's in the middle of the city, and I've seen how they've resourced. And when we asked people, they told us that just in the past weeks, over 2,000 people have received shelter there. And whether it was an attic, whether it was a boardroom of the church or the basement or any level of it was on 3 levels, there were mattresses everywhere. Showers were put in place. The kitchen has been completely overhauled and upgraded, if you want. And one of the volunteers told me the story that I want to share with the audience. Is I went the other day, he says, to go and buy bread, and as I was waiting the line at the bakery, the lady at the cashier asked me, "But why do you need so many breads?" He says, "Well, look, we actually catering for all this, people in need that they were fleeing Ukraine and they are staying with us. They are refugees at our community shelter." And then he says, as he left with those bags of bread, there was one guy running after him, and he says, "Look, I'm a chef. I own my own restaurant. I want to come with you right now and cook in that kitchen." And it was this chef that came, surrounded by all these other volunteers providing food for those people. Those are the touching stories, and I could see how the volunteers were mobilized themselves and said, "Look, we couldn't stop but share story after stories." Others left their studies. I met today another volunteer who says, "Look, I speak Russian, I speak Ukrainian, I speak English. I wanted to be of help, so I came here. I left my studies for a week to assist." So it's really just in Romania alone. Over 1,000 volunteers have been mobilized, and there are 7 border crossings with Ukraine. And those crossings, they are so well resourced. 24/7, volunteers are taking shifts to welcome people with a sandwich, with a warm drink, facilitating translation accommodation. So that is happening on this side of the border, across the 7 countries, whether it's Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, but also inside Ukraine, the same mobilization is taking place.
And Alex, it's just so heartwarming to hear that you're telling the story of how many people are mobilizing. They're helping, really, doing God's work of just being the hands and feet of Jesus. Just helping their neighbors that are going through a difficult time. Alex, as you have seen sort of the changes happening on the ground and the needs, what are really the needs that are at the moment that are just the real priorities, and maybe how have those changed in the last 4 weeks?
So as we speak, it's almost 1 in 4 Ukrainian, or people in Ukraine, whatever their nationality, have been displaced. It's 10 million people. It could be more than that. These people are in need of assistance. As you know, 3.5 million have left the country, but the other 6.5 or more, they are in need of assistance. Over 64 medical facilities have been hit and destroyed, or partly destroyed. And from actually the first week of arriving here, medical supplies, life-saving supplies, those were they still are the greatest need. And also in the safer cities, people fleeing and becoming displaced in their own country from fleeing the shelling and the hotspots, as we see them on the maps, as you see it in the news. Those people need food. Food remains a critical target. We are mobilizing to reach thousands, if more hundreds of thousands of people with food. Food assistance right now is one of the major needs. Also medical assistance, and then also we're hearing the need of mental support, psychosocial support. All these little children there is over 500 school or educational facilities that have been destroyed. I mean, and there's no schooling taking place at the moment. So that's another major need. And I mentioned the children, just leaving everything behind. And it's rewarding sometimes to see them, to see a smile on their face as our volunteers welcome them with a toy at the booth here at the Syrian border, or handing them, something to make them happy.
Yeah, you mentioned, a lot of times, we couldn't do a lot of the work that we do if it wasn't at the moment for our volunteers. And I know that a lot of those, really all those volunteers are volunteers, local volunteers, not from other countries or not international from the U.S. So we just want to clarify that. I know there's a lot of interest out there, but certainly we are working with local volunteers who know the language, who know the culture. And Alex, I know that you do a lot of work with partnerships, and partnerships are certainly a key part of any response, of making sure that we can leverage each other, that we can collaborate, that we're not really, kind of stepping over each other. Tell us a little bit about, from your experience, how do partnerships work, and what are some of those partnerships, and how is that making a difference in this crisis?
So this crisis alone, just to discuss Ukraine, it's something that's bigger than anybody is expecting. It's so complex in itself. I would also, and I'm very happy we're also not forgetting other crises. And you mentioned Yemen, you mentioned, the Venezuelan crisis, you mentioned Haiti. I mean, we shouldn't forget about the 20 million people in Yemen still needing humanitarian assistance. We're talking about Ukraine. So this is the humanitarian effort. The humanitarian community needs to come together. So everything that I've been sharing, the 100,000 tons of aid that were reported recently being delivered inside Ukraine, it's an effort. It's a collaborative effort of all the NGO actors, agencies like ADRA and UNICEF and the UN agencies and the Save the Children, all the other agencies that are mobilizing together to provide aid. And we work with this colleagues. We are all cooperating, coordinating, avoiding duplication. The medical supplies that I was mentioning, we are working with a partner in the United States, Adventist Health. It's a hospital, conglomerate in the United States. We work with them to get the right pricing or the right donations. Then we work with another aviation partner, Airlink, based in DC, that works with multiple airlines to provide free airlifts to the area. And then we work with another partner to provide a last mile, Flexport, or other companies to provide the assistance inside Ukraine. And there are other NGOs, focused on health alone that we work inside Ukraine. So it's really a complex chain. It's a joint effort to deliver aid. That's why it becomes complex, but it's also rewarding to see that in this unity, in this collaboration, there is purpose and there is impact on the ground. That's how we can reach, millions of people. And this is, I want to say for the audience, this 1 month, grim, timeline that we're discussing today. This is the moment when humanitarian assistance inside Ukraine is pivoting. It's pivoting to scale. The budgets have been written, the funds have arrived, the assistance is now going, and this is the time to reach the millions in need. And this is a joint effort. It's a very collaborative effort.
And certainly, you pointed out to the collaboration that is really at the backbone of this response, of any emergency response, really working together across different areas with different partners to make sure that the aid arrives fast and it has the desired impact. Alex, I know it's getting late for you. I know you have some more miles to travel, kilometers to travel where you are. And so we just want to thank you for all the work that you have done, again, to respond to the needs of this crisis. And, we just want to wish you the best, safe travels as you're, driving tonight still. And so just we'll keep you in our prayers and your family as well as you go on. So thank you, Alex, for everything you've done.
Thank you, Harley. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It's great to connect with people in the field as they're doing the work and just sharing some of those really just amazing stories of how the work is happening. Our next guest actually is very experienced in disaster, in emergencies, in crisis. His name is Thomas Petracek, and he's joining us today from Germany. Thomas, there you are. Welcome to this Facebook Live. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this welcome. Yeah, it's also very nice to be with this audience. Yeah, thank you.
And Thomas, we see you oftentimes in our meetings, in our calls. I know you are really at the heart of this response, doing a lot of coordination. Tell us a little bit about your role specifically within Europe, but also with this crisis.
Yeah, actually here in Europe, we are working in a region where we have 30 offices as ADRA, so we call this ADRA Europe. And there is another ADRA, which is EST ADRA, where ADRA Moldova and ADRA Ukraine is also based. But my responsibility is mainly for this region, and I'm actually the programs and emergency response coordinator. So this disaster is, of course, a huge one for us, and somehow we are trying from our sides to organize all these offices which are receiving the refugees from Ukraine. And Alex was also talking about Romania a lot, and that's perfect, So, and this is actually happening in all these countries neighboring with Ukraine, for example, in Poland, in Slovakia, in Hungary. The same is also happening in Moldova. Moldova is one of the poorest countries. It doesn't belong to my region, but we are also cooperating with them because there is no chance for us. We have the only chance to cooperate, to partner together as ADRA family. And what I want to express right now, we see also this huge solidarity coming from outside. So we are so happy having this strong network which support us as a ADRA family. And of course, it's not only ADRA because the church is behind us. The church is working with the volunteers, and actually that's the channel for us. So we are not working alone here. We are working with the Seventh-day Adventist Church together. Alex was talking about a lot, and this is happening in all these countries. There are various models, there are various approaches, there are various settings, but in general, the same model as ADRA we are implementing. Yeah.
And Thomas, you mentioned working right now directly in some of those border states like Poland, Romania, Hungary, and Slovakia. But of course, we understand that refugees are also traveling beyond those countries. In some instances, those countries are transit countries. They're going beyond those countries. Can you share a little bit more with our audience in terms of how is that refugee crisis impacting some of the other countries, and perhaps what ADRA is doing, even in your home country in Germany, also where you work in Belgium and other countries in Europe?
Yeah, of course. So we are talking here about maybe three different circles. So at the beginning, we have these neighboring countries. We have mentioned them all: Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania in my region. And of course, there are also other countries like Belarus and Russia, because there are also refugees going to Russia and refugees going to Belarus. But from my perspective, this is the first circle. So then the refugees are passing. Not all of them are staying in these countries. Some of them, they are staying. But many of them, they continue to pass to the other countries like Germany, like Czech Republic, like Austria. And that's maybe the second one. And then we have the third circle. They go to Italy, they go to Bulgaria, they go to Croatia, to Slovenia, so they go to Spain and Portugal. Actually, this is a kind of move. What we could see is a kind of solidarity coming from all these European countries, so even there are people, they are traveling from long distances just to go to the border and pick up the friends and the neighbors, so the Ukraine diaspora is a strong one in Europe. The biggest one is in Poland, but they are almost everywhere in Europe. So therefore, they are connected, and of course, the people are always trying to reach those who are living somewhere else here, their families, their friends, and so on. So that is the wave how this continue. And we could see also these numbers. These numbers are growing. For example, in Germany, we have more than 300,000 refugees coming. The same is also for Czech Republic as the second wave. There is a little bit less in Austria, of course, but this continue. So, and all these refugees are welcome, and ADRA is also involved. Of course, mainly on the border, but also in Germany, in Czech Republic, so in Austria, in Bulgaria. When I'm talking about these countries, we have in all these countries, we have our units, we have our offices, and we are connected with them. And we are trying from our side, from our office, which is based in Brussels, in Belgium, we are trying to organize everything in terms of bringing partners together, helping in evacuation, working with the churches, working with the children, working with psychosocial support, with mental support, and so on. So this continues. Yeah.
And it's important to point out that ADRA, as you mentioned, is present in most of Europe, all the way to Portugal, all those countries in between, Italy, all the way to Norway and Sweden. So there's a lot of presence of ADRA, and of course we have a strong collaboration with the Adventist Church and other partners that helps to also make sure that we can respond. Thomas, where you were talking, it was reminiscent. I was just remembering the Syrian crisis a few years ago, that movement of millions of people across Europe. And as you were talking, I was wondering, how is that? Are there similarities? Are there differences? I know that you and your team did a lot of work at that time to make sure that those refugees were taken care of, that they were receiving assistance. But can you maybe share a little bit of what your experience meant then that you're able to now use, and what are some of those similarities or differences from these two major refugee crises?
It's a good question. Definitely, there are some differences, but when we are talking about refugees, we are always talking about people who are displaced, who are coming just with their own one suitcase with the children and so on. In terms of the crisis in Syria, we have seen much more united families, let's say, or men first coming, to Europe, and then they were actually trying to get the families later on to come. In terms of the Ukraine crisis, we see mainly children and women coming, or elderly people. This is because the men have to stay in Ukraine. Actually, those who are between 18 and 60, they are obliged to stay there. So therefore, we are getting more and more children and women and elderly people. So that is the main difference. The second one is we could see a quite big openness, so to this society, to Ukraine, because you have maybe more relation, so from the past. Of course, all these Syrian refugees were also welcome. I could remember the time here in Germany. So where all these refugees were coming, to the train station, and we have a lot of volunteers here, not only Adventists, but also Adventists, welcoming them, providing food. The same thing, actually, what we are doing today, but I guess the process for them was a little bit different, because all of them, they started to run for asylum, so in case of the Ukraine displaced people, the authorities actually opened the way for them, and the integration for them is much more easier. For example, right now the authorities are taking over in terms to provide schooling for the children, so they don't need to stay for months, in a refugee camp, so they go immediately to the school system. So the same is also with the job. Of course, the integration, I would say, of these refugees coming from Ukraine is faster. Maybe it's because we have this experience from the past, so in Europe, maybe it's easier even for the authorities to decide. This was a huge experience, definitely done. And of course, maybe there are some also relation in terms of language. It's much more easier, for example, for these Slavic countries, speaking a similar language, somehow accommodate, and maybe even the culture is a little bit easier for them to accommodate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly some similarities, some differences, but at the end, it is our heart-wrenching situation for on both in both cases, and so. Thomas, as you're looking to the near future, and of course it's hard to understand sometimes and look at this crystal ball, if you will, but how do you see ADRA's work and ADRA's response changing over the next few weeks and months as we start to get into farther and farther, or deeper and deeper into this crisis, moving initially from providing food and water and hygiene and shelter for refugees coming across the border to perhaps a different or an evolving response? How do you see that changing?
Yeah, actually, from our sides, definitely we will continue supporting Ukraine. So because we see all this development, we see still that people are coming. So and there is not a kind of stop. So there are many people living on the other side, being in hosting families, institutions, schools like IDPs. Alex was also talking about this 6.5 million. This is a kind of estimation. So the work continues. So we expect more people coming. Therefore, we will keep all these activities running, so providing actually the basic support for the refugees, taking care in terms of accommodation and so on, psychosocial support children and so on. But what we see for the future, we think it would be good to integrate this refugee as soon as possible into the system here in Western Europe, so to make them more independent, on any kind of support. And actually, this will give them a kind of dignity again, so therefore we are encouraging our partners, of course, to take care for them, but also to allow them, the refugees, to be active, and that is something also nice to see. They are not just sitting and waiting for the help. Of course, at the beginning, in the first days, is difficult. This is a trauma, but as soon as they start to be active, so to then and then they have a new perspective for them. We will stay with them all the time. We will continue working not only in the first response, but also in the integration. And again, we need all these volunteers, which are actually working from the beginning with them, and the church is also supporting us. I guess that's the main how to say this. If I'm looking to the glass and globe, then this is maybe the direction, the future. So
Okay.
on one side, the integration; on the other side, also providing material as much as possible to Ukraine, because we see also the shortage of material. At the beginning, it was maybe easier to just give the cash and then help them to buy something and to support the hosting families. But right now, there's a shortage coming, and we have started also to prepare some convoys here from our side, not only the small one. We are in the process to have the big trucks, going through the border, and it started already. ADRA Czech Republic is very active in logistics. We see also ADRA Slovakia. We have also support from the other sides. They are willing also to send some material. Even some companies, they are giving this for free. Again, at the beginning, everybody is helping, but of course we expect this crisis will continue for a longer time. We need to be prepared for the next phases which will come, and hopefully the war will end in the next weeks and months, and then we will start with the rehabilitation of the society in Ukraine. We don't know what will happen. Yeah, so that's a big question for us, but we are trying somehow to accommodate to the situation as it is right now, and then this is the nice how to say this. This is the advantage of ADRA, So with all these
Yes.
partners, we are not alone, So we have this discussion. We are very much linked with the partners, and as ADRA, as a church, but also we are linked with the other NGOs, with the authorities, and that help us somehow to adapt to the situation step by step and prepare the next one.
Yeah, and certainly you're going to be facing a lot of challenges, and our prayer and hope is, as you said, that this crisis will come to an end very soon, and so we're hoping, we're praying, but certainly for you and your team in Europe, so that you continue to stay energized, you can continue to stay committed for all the work that is coming, in the near future. So, Thomas, thank you so much for your time, for your insights, for your experience in sharing a little bit about what is the reality there in Europe at this time. So, again, thank you, and we wish you well. I know you have other meetings and things coming up as you're planning the logistics and the response with the rest of the team. So have a good night. I know you're already night over there, but we want to thank you. So
thank you very much.
Care.
Thank you for all your support. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you for the solidarity. So we could really feel that you are behind us. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And that goes also to all of our supporters who are watching and who've donated, who have participated in this campaign. As we transition now to our final guest, we just want to continue to encourage you to share this live with your contacts, with your friends. If you want to learn more again about what ADRA is doing on the ground, you can visit our website. It's on the screen right now. And you'll find just some really relevant information. Of course, you can follow us on social media and see the latest of our response. Now to our final guest is Mario Oliveira, and perhaps some of you have seen him on other lives, as he is our emergency management director at ADRA International. So I just want to welcome Mario. Mario, you have been extremely busy over the last 30 days. I can't imagine how much sleep you're getting. I know it's not a lot. But certainly, we just want to thank you for everything that you've done and your team to coordinate this response. So welcome to our Facebook Live.
Thank you, Early, for having me. My pleasure.
So Mario, you're the person responsible for ADRA's emergencies and crisis globally. You have a big responsibility, a big job, and I know that with any crisis, there's a lot of coordination. So tell us briefly on how you coordinate such a massive response where you're pulling resources and people from all over the world to make sure that we are responding in the most efficient manner to this crisis. So tell us a little bit.
The coordination for this humanitarian crisis started a couple of years ago. It didn't start just 4 weeks ago. And it started when we conduct trainings in the different regions around the world, in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in South Pacific, where we train people, professionals, other employees, to how to respond to this emergency, to this kind of emergency, even if each emergency is different and it's not always the same that the last one. So and we train, we give the principles how to do it, and then we have simulations, exercises. We call that CMAX. And then at the end, we select those who are really capable to be deployed locally, those who are eventually are not able to be deployed. Not everyone it passes, and then those who are able to be deployed not only locally, regionally, but even globally, as it is the case here. And immediately after the war started, so it started on a Thursday. On a Friday, we had already a meeting with Thomas and with our partners in Europe and all around the world. And we started to plan who to send and what are the needs, what are the capacity, what can we do. And on Sunday, we had already another meeting, and we were already sending people like Alex, like Michael from Australia. And then the first thing is who is available to jump on the first plane and to go. And from them, where are the needs in the ground. And it can be primarily in planning, writing proposals. We need a coordinator at the local level or national level, and also at a regional level. But we also need other positions. We need a programs director. We need a security and safety officer. We need safeguarding and protection. We need logistics. So we see what are the needs, what are the resources available, and then we contact people to start coming. There is also a question of visa, questions of lodging. And yes, it's quite complex, but the fact that we are trained in advance prepares us to respond. And that's why we are not sending anyone, but we send primarily people that are trained and they are used to respond to these kind of emergencies.
And Mario, what you described, really what a lot of people see, our supporters see in terms of the photo, is sort of the tip of the iceberg. They're seeing, the aid being distributed, the people assisted. But what you're describing also is a lot of logistics, a lot of planning, a lot of really capacity to make sure that we're able to get the right people, that we're able to get finances in, that we're able to get people to safeguard those vulnerable people that are being affected. So there's so much coordination happening. I know that your team, responds to more than 150 disasters a year, and from mega disasters to smaller disasters. But as you compare and as you kind of look at the situation, what are some of the things that you have to consider now as you plan the next phase of this response, understanding again that you have been really focused on immediate needs over the last 30 days? How do you plan for that, and what are some of the things that you are anticipating will happen?
This crisis is not yet at its peak. It's still growing and it's getting worse. And unfortunately, the worst is yet to come. We hope for the peace to happen tomorrow, but we have to be realistic that this is not going to happen as soon as we would like. So what we are already working after the first wave of people that we sent, about 8, 10 people, and it was not only one country. If there is, I don't know, a problem in Haiti or in Sudan, it's local. We can send people here. We are talking as 5, 6, 7 countries, and we have to coordinate with different capacities, with different requirements. So after the first wave of people that we send, we are already looking ahead, and the people that we are sending now, it's for longer term. So just yesterday, there was a couple that they arrived from Myanmar. They are based in Moldova. They are originally from Moldova, so they will be able to support Moldova for the next 6 weeks. We also have someone arriving on Sunday that will stay for 3 months. So we start to look at the long-term capacity in the ground, always taking into consideration the need to build capacity locally. We don't want just to send very and high qualified people who do the job very well. 6 months later, they pull out and it's gone. No, we want to build capacity. That's why we also deployed a human resources director here from ADRA International, CC, that she's working closely with the offices around Ukraine and other Ukraine, how to build capacity, how to engage a comms person, a finance person, a logistic person. So this is also another main preoccupation that we have, is search capacity and build capacity for the long term, that the offices, when we pull out in 2, 3, 4, 6 months, it doesn't matter, they can walk and run by themselves.
Certainly, that is a critical element of any response, making sure that there's continuity, that the recovery continues to happen, and it's just not stopped right away. And we've seen many of those examples where you and your team have been able to do that and to make sure that there is that capacity locally. As we conclude this Facebook Live, I know that from a personal perspective, I know you've lived all over the world. You've faced a lot of this crisis, been in the front lines. What is a message, personal message, that you would like to send our supporters today who are maybe wondering how they can help or how they can really support your team and what ADRA is doing to support refugees coming out of Ukraine?
I think it's important to we can help in several ways. Definitely, we can pray for the refugees, pray for the presidents, the ones who have responsibility. Pray for the staff inside Ukraine, outside Ukraine, who are working on the front line. We have seen 2 cases with Thomas and Alex. They have done a fantastic job under huge pressure, under extreme conditions, working 14, 16 hours a day. It's incredible what they have been doing. and pray also all the volunteers that probably don't are ADRA, but church members, unknown people that are able to come and to support. We pray for them. We also can share with ADRA and other organizations that they are doing, and we can share this in the social media, in our page, make known the work that is being done in the field. And then, of course, yes, we can also contribute with funds, and it's money. Money is the best way that we can help. Even in the field, we are working with multi-purpose cash. People think sometimes that the organization, they give food or they give clothes, they give mattress. Yes, we give on if needed, but more and more the NGOs, they are moving aside from the in-kind contributions or the gifts in kinds, and we are moving to cash for the beneficiary. Because you might like rice, I like pasta. Why should I receive potatoes when it's not the needed? And another one might need medicines. Another one might need to pay a ticket to travel abroad or to go away. So we know and we trust the beneficiaries. They know better than us what they need. So we give cash to them, and we help them to be autonomous, to be self-sufficient. And it's even a question of dignity. They are able to choose by themselves what they need the most. So yes, definitely the way that people can help is going through adra.org/help now. There is others organizations also that are doing a fantastic job, but we were them from day one, and we will continue. We were already before, we are responding them, and when there will be no more projectors, no more spots, no more media, we will still be there, keep helping those who need the most.
And certainly, Mario, this crisis hopefully will not continue, but if it does continue, we will be there, as you said. You mentioned something very important as well, is prayer. And I think we can all extend a prayer for those families affected and for your team. And I would like for us to conclude here with a prayer. And I think it's very appropriate at this time to pray and to ask God to really help us as we go through this. Many people go through this difficult time. So I invite, if you're watching with us, I invite you to join us as we conclude in prayer. So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, you've just shown us, Lord, and so many needs happening right now in Ukraine, in many countries around there that are affected by war right now. Lord, we're praying. We pray that you will extend your loving hands, Lord, to protect, to be with those individuals that are suffering, that are vulnerable, those young children and mothers, Lord. So many people at this time that are suffering. That they will also find peace, and through the work that ADRA is doing and so many supporters right now, that help may come to them and that they may find and feel home, Lord. Again, thank you for this ministry, for this opportunity to serve so many people, Lord. We ask all of this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
So thank you, Mario. Again, we'll let you get back to your busy schedule. And as always, we appreciate everything that you do and your team. And again, for all of you who have been patient with us and been watching, again, thank you for your support. Please check out our website where you can learn more about what ADRA is doing. If you want, also, you can make a donation at adra.org. But again, please continue to support this response, to pray for those in need. And again, just thank you for everything that you do, for all your support. So God bless, and we'll see you around. So take care.